So the first thing I want to talk about is actually something I already talked about, but it turned out I didn't explain this matter properly the last time. So one viewer asked me about this and I thought I should mention this here real quick. So it is about the lanes function and how you can clean up your lanes. So let's say you have recorded several takes and now you're using the comping tool to select the parts that you like best in your various takes, and then you have one part from the first take, another from the second, and from the third and fourth. And now if you would close up your lanes, you would see here the second part, the third and the fourth, and that would actually work. So like this, you could leave it like that if you want to, but if you want to clean up your lanes, then there is an easy function for that, and it goes like this. You go to Audio, Advanced, and you say no overlaps, and then you can already see the outlook of the events changed, because before, so I'm using the go back function, you see that before, when I had all the several takes here and I close my lanes, you can see these fine lines over the events. And that means there are still other takes available. But if you use the advanced no overlaps, then all the other ones get deleted and you see the fine lines, they vanish. And if I open up my lanes, all the other ones are gone and only the ones that I selected are left. A second thing I want to share is if you're working on your Midi data and you want to select all the notes from one key, then there is a function for it. You could, of course, right now it's very simple, just select them like this, and that would be completely sufficient. But sometimes the notes, so let's say they're close together all, and then it's more difficult, and sometimes it goes over a lot of bars, and sometimes it's here and then back here again. So it's way easier to use this function, and it goes like this. You go to the key that you want to select and you press it with your control or command key. So that makes you select all the notes from that certain height. But what I want to show right now is there is another function that lets you select all the notes from the same key in different octaves. Right now it is not a good idea to do so because I have drums here and I probably don't want to select all the E or F or G notes, but let's say I have strings and they're playing in different octaves and I want all the E notes from the different octaves selected. Then you can do like so. You select one of the notes you want to have and you go over here to selection and you say select all the same notes in all octaves. And then you see all my E's down here got selected, the ones here and the ones here. So right now I have all the E's selected, and now I can change these notes, for example, I don't know, to E flat, or in the velocity, or in the rhythm or length or whatever. The third tip I want to share is also really simple and basic, but could improve your working a lot. Let's say I have some MIDI data here and I also want to have it on another track. So I just copy it down with my modifier key. I use Alt or Option and hold it, and then I can drag it somewhere else, like so. Like this, I can layer different sounds. But you see right now, all my different events have the same name. They are all called drums now. And that happens if we copy from one track to another, then at first the event name stays the same. So that might not be a problem for you if you don't mind, but sometimes it's confusing that I have on my piano track a event that's called drums. So if you want to rename the events on your track to the same name as the track, then you would just go here to your track name and type in a track name that you like, and then you hit the command or control key and enter, and you see the name that you typed in front is now also on all of your events. The last thing I want to show is something I realized has gotten a lot of attention lately. I listened to some advice that Steinberg gives on its own channel, and frequently there was the same question, and it was, how can I copy automation data from one track to another? It seems there is some really simple solution in other DAWs, and therefore one guy who is some kind of a Cubase specialist, and he told in this video the listeners his solution, and he made himself a macro and shared this one. So if you want to do that in Cubase, so to copy all your automation data from one track to another in just one click, and you need this function very often, then it's probably a good idea to use the trick that I think Greg Ondo is his name, that he used. If you don't want to do that because you don't need this function very often, then there is another or two other really simple solutions that I use, because I don't need that a lot, and I think the two solutions that already exist in this program are good enough, at least for what I'm doing. And what I mean is this. Let's say we have some automation data here written on this track, and then afterwards I realize I need the same data on another track as well. There's two possibilities, like I said, that I think are good enough. And these go like this. So the simplest solution would be, let's say I want to have the automation data from drums also on bass. The simple solution is kind of a workaround, and I would just go like this. I would duplicate the track, and that means I have also duplicated my automation data. And now what I do is I simply delete the information from the drums, and I take my bass information and drag it there, and that's basically it. Now I have all the automation data with the information of my bass track. The only thing you then would have to do is, obviously you now have copied all your information from the drums track, and you probably don't want your drums compression and equalizer and other settings on your bass track. So what you have to do is you go now here to your bass track and you copy all your bass information and paste it here in this new duplicated drum track. Then we have the sound of your bass track here, and you have the MIDI data from your bass track here, and you have the automation data. That's not in one click, but I think it's a fairly simple solution and it does the trick. So the other solution you could use is also kind of simple. Then you just have to do one thing in advance. If you want to have your volume and your mute automation and your panel automation, then you have to make sure that in your other track you also have volume, mute and panel automation opened in the same order as above. If you have done that, then you simply select all your automation tracks. You right click and say select all the events. You use your command copy function, and now you have two possibilities. You either go here and use a special command which is called paste at origin, or what you also could do, so paste at origin is just alt and paste, or what you could do is you say you select all your events and you set your locator to the beginning of these events, and you go down here and you use just your normal paste function. So that is a really good possibility, but it has one disadvantage. You can see basically everything is where it's supposed to be. You see my automation data goes down here. Yes, that's correct. And then I have this dip around here. This is the same. And I have this peak over here. It's also the same. But after my last automation point here, you see it wrote another one down here. Right now I'm not quite sure why that is, but Cubase can't leave it like that. It has to write this finishing point. So what you would have to do with this function that I just showed is you should delete your last point, and then you see it looks exactly like the one above. That is not necessary on this track because it just has on and off. So there is another point here, but it doesn't matter, it's still off. Again, here it's just on and off, but it is the same in the beginning. So you see my first point is here, but here I have two. So this one I have to delete it. And again, here one was written, I don't know why, I have to delete that as well. So that would be the disadvantage with this option. There is one at the beginning and one at the end that you should delete. Then you can just copy it here with these lanes, as much lanes as you want to. You just select all that you want to, right click, select all the events, and then you command copy it. And if you want to, you set your locator to the selection. Then you could use the standard command paste, or if you leave your locator somewhere else, then you could copy it and go down here and say copy at origin location, and that is alt and paste. So I hope you found this information helpful. Check out some of my other vids. I will leave a link in the description for working with automation and the lanes function.